Hi, I'm Marcel, and welcome to me screaming into the void, mostly about books. Warming up to August, when we are going to do Women in Translation Month, I am now working on a project that Maitel Radzinski, so sorry if I'm butchering your name right now, did in 2019. So she asked everyone to send in their best favorite books written by women in translation, and she made a 100 best of list. So I am going to now go through and read all of the books on that list and give you a small comment on them. And what I want from you is that you, in my comments, write down your favorite books written by women in translation, so we can create a new list and see if it's similar or different from the list from 2019. This is my third video of going through the list, and please let me know, what are your favorite women in translation books? On the spot 91, we have Please Look After Mother by Kyung Sok Shin, and I apologize for the names. This is she Japanese or South Korean? Very quickly, I should have checked this beforehand. She lives in Seoul, so South Korean. And this is about a family whose mother and father are traveling from the countryside into Seoul because they're going to visit the family. And the father gets there in time, but the mother vanishes. And then there is so much conflict between these siblings and the father, trying to figure out what happened to the mother. And there are so many ways that you can read this book and what the book focuses on, in the sense of the mother character, identity, all that good stuff. But what I really enjoyed the most about this is the squabbling between the family members on the case of duty. Because everyone then starts pointing fingers at everyone else on what they should have done to stop this from happening. And I especially enjoyed a scene between the son of this couple and his wife, because the son is angry at his wife for not traveling to the train station to pick up his parents, while she had chose to travel to visit their daughter, who is now studying for an exam. And they are bickering back and forth between who should have done what, when, where. And the blame game goes everywhere. And I think that is such an interesting comment on how everyone wants things to be a certain way, but they don't want to have to do anything for that to happen. They don't want anything. I don't want to be bothered by anything. But of course, I want these things to happen, but someone else should be doing that. So I enjoyed the commentary on that, especially in regard to children and their parents. And probably because of the mother character, because we think so much about mothers as the caregivers. She is the one who sacrificed everything to us. So what do we then owe our mother? Well, everything. So you should have done everything. The next book on the list spot 90 is Hertha Müller, and I'm just looking a bit all over the place because in the region it's called Pustejungen, but in English it's called the Hunger Angel. And this is a book I borrowed from the library, so I'm just going to read what our librarian wrote to recommend this book. Leopold is taken into Russian internment camp. It's about exclusion and survival. Amazing language. Good job, Kari. I don't have any notes. I have a few more notes. Hertha Müller is a Romanian author from from a German family. So there is a German minority living in Romania, and that's where Hertha Müller is from. And during the Second World War, in the same that happened in so many other countries, German people were sent to internment camps, to work camps, because, well, Germany was the enemy. And the same thing happened to this German minority who'd been living for generations in Romania. They were Romanian, just by German descent. And so this book follows Leopold as he is then sent to a Russian internment camp because he is a member of this German minority in Romania. And what I so much enjoyed with this book is that it shows what being othered does to you. And also, in the same thing that I loved the hotel on the corner of Sweet and Bitter, which I talked about in my romance project, we are so good at talking about how other countries create distances and treat their minorities bad. We're not really good at sort of looking into our own country's history with that. So very sort of wonderful, introspective book about, well, what it took to survive in that kind of situation. On spot 89, we have Russia Gusel Jakina. That's probably not how you pronounce your name. And she has Zuleika is just a name in English. In Norwegian, it's Zuleika opens her eyes. And we are again in the 1930s. And Zuleika is what we call a Tatar. So she is also a minority person living within Russia. And in the 1930s, Russia was sort of building up the communist system, the communist culture. And Tatars weren't really something that had a place within the narrative that they were building. So this was inspired by a true story where a bunch of Tatar people were put on a train and just sent. Russia is huge. So they just spent years being transported on this train from place to place in Russia because the Russian government didn't know what to do with them, because they sort of didn't fit into the narrative that they wanted to create. But they were Russian, so you can't really sort of send them somewhere else. And it's such a fascinating book to read from this Zelensky character, because Zelensky, as someone who was raised Tatar, was raised sort of introspective. Her job is just to get married, have children, and do what her husband tells her. And at the start of the book, she is so sheltered and she is so whipped by her husband and her mother-in-law, and it doesn't really have a good life. She is surviving, but she doesn't really have a good life. And then this horrible thing happens where she is sort of shipped off on this train and she blossoms. And it's so weird. It's so believable. It's such a wonderful journey that Zelenka, the character, goes on. But it's such a weird context that it goes on, and you don't really know if Gisela Zhekina, who is she critiquing? Is she critiquing everyone? This book, she got so much backlash from writing this book. Everyone was critiquing her because, number one, she was pointing out something that happened in Russian history that doesn't really look good on paper. No one really likes the idea that the Russian government just put an entire minority on a train and then spent years just sending them away crisscross across the country. At the same time, the character development that Zelenka has, yeah. On spot 88, we have the French author Fleur Jaggi, and she wrote the book Sweet Days of Discipline. It's a very short, very sweet book. And sweet in the weirdest sense, because it's quite a dark book as well. It's weird. It's about a young girl who travels to an Italian. It's an Italian school, and it's a school where you live, boarding school. That's the word I was looking for. She travels to a boarding school, and then she falls in love with one of the other girls. They are both 15 at the time. And then it becomes kind of Mean Girls. And if you've seen Mean Girls, you know what I mean when I say it's kind of Mean Girls. So it's so much about the teenage girl politics that develops within a boarding school where only teenage girls are. And there's such cute moments on one hand, but it's so dark. Teenage girls are so dark at moments, especially when you're in love with another girl. And then we have the book by the Danish author Dorthe Nors, and in English the title is Mirror Shoulder Signal. So this book starts with Sonia, and Sonia wants to learn how to drive a car. And she gets some of her friends to try to teach her how to drive a car. But it doesn't really go well. And what Sonia is Sonia is sort of a good example of, which has become sort of quite common in one sense, as a character. I think maybe Bridget Jones was the one who sort of started this entire craze, where Sonia is a good example of an adult who isn't really adulting, and she functions. You just don't really know how she is functioning. So she is going around doing her stuff and being neurotic, because that's what we are now. And so she is functioning in some sense, but at the same time, it's a character you're just looking at, and how are you functioning? So yeah, it's quite funny, and sort of, if you can sort of laugh at your own generation. How are any of us functioning? The last book I'm going to talk about in this video is by the French Christelle Dabos, and it's A Winter's Promise. Now, this is a young adult romantasy and the first book in a series. We are in a fantasy world where one family has divided into different fractions, and they live on their own islands. So these sort of, and then you have the descendants of these families who are worshipping sort of the first family who fractioned out. And then so you have these descendants of these families who are living secluded on this little island. And we are following Isabel, who has been given away in marriage to someone on another island. And that doesn't happen, because the islands live very segregated. But you see, in this world, everyone has their magical powers. And Isabella has a very interesting magical power. Number one, it's the general power within sort of her family, which is that she can read objects. So she can touch an object and read sort of the history of it. But she has another one. She can go through mirrors. But so why have she been chosen to be married away to this man who comes from one of the other islands, where everything is cold and dark all year round? So it's cute, it's funny. I enjoyed the world building very much. I thought it was a sort of fascinating way of imagining a world where you sort of, well, what if you had a set of gods that were siblings and then just separated into these different islands? What would then happen if their descendants met and had to understand the different things that are happening? It is a romantasy. There is sort of a subplot going on between Isabel and her betrothed, but you don't really get much of it in this book. But it will sort of happen more in the subsequent books. So that was the books I wanted to talk about this time from the list. Please let me know, what are your favorite books of women in translation in the comments below. And thank you for listening to me screaming into the void.